What's going on, family? We got to talk about this DC takeover, man. They say crime is off the chain. The National Guard has been deployed. Homelessness is rampant. They say the leadership ain't taking care of the police department up there. So President Trump said he's stepping in, taking over. Enough is enough of this mess, and he want to clean it up. So let's get into it. Let's see what the media is talking about, and then I'll come back and give my commentary at the end.
Alexandria Hoff with the very latest on this D.C. crime crackdown. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Sandra. Good to be with you. Yeah, the president said today that crime is directly impacting the function of the federal government. Therefore, it is his job to do something about that. And he did today by invoking Section 740 of D.C.'s home rule. What that allows the president to do is take control of the city's police department under emergency conditions for a certain amount of time. So for now, the Justice Department will run D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Force.
Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department. In addition, deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
So in a lengthy press conference today, the president brought up several recent examples of random crime, like the 21-year-old congressional intern shot and killed by a stray bullet last month, and a former DOJ staffer who was beaten after defending a young woman from a carjacking attempt. Well, D.C.'s attorney general, he's disputing all of this, mainly the overarching theme of today's presser, by saying the administration's actions are unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful. There is no crime emergency in the District of Columbia. Violent crime in D.C. reached historic 30-year lows last year, and is down another 26% so far this year. So on paper, violent crime and homicides, they are indeed down. There were 187 murders in D.C. last year, down from a recent high of 226 in 2021. But numbers are still above pre-pandemic levels. And to boot, the D.C. Police Union has accused MPD officials of falsifying crime data to make create a false narrative of reduced crime. Now, next month, the House Oversight Committee, they're going to bring in Washington, D.C. officials for a hearing. They want to hear about legislative solutions that they have to crime in this city. Sandra.
All right, Alexandria Hoff live at the White House on that for us. Alex, thank you. John.
All right, Sandra, let's bring in the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, who was part of today's announcement and will be part of the plan to try to clean up Washington, D.C. Mr. Secretary, good to have you on today. As expected, the Democrats are giving this plan the big raspberry. Listen to what the Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said right after the announcement. He said violent crime in Washington, D.C. is at a 30-year low. Donald Trump has no basis to take over the local police department and zero credibility on the issue of law and order. Get lost. I mean, it is true, as Alexandria Hoff was pointing out, that crime is down in Washington, D.C., still above pre-pandemic levels. But I don't expect that's much comfort to people like the parents of Eric Tarpinian Yakum, who was gunned down and killed in that drive-by shooting back at the beginning of July.
Well, that's exactly right, John and Sandra. Great to be with you. President Trump, compliments to him again for his leadership. These comments made by the other party are tone deaf to the actual reality of living in this city, and ask any young people that are coming here to try to work for the government. It's already one of the most expensive cities in the world, but it's also now one of the most dangerous cities in the world. And that does impair the function of government. President Trump has every right to declare an emergency. And how Interior is involved is because the U.S. Park Police, which is the nation's oldest federal police organization, formed by George Washington in 1791, has responsibility for the National Mall and all the triangle and circle parks that spread across the D.C. metro area, as well as the parkways that extend into Maryland and Virginia. So they've been on the tip of the spear. And I tell you, the rank and file of the Park Police, the U.S. Park Police, is so happy with President Trump because they're now having a leader that's willing to support enforcing the laws. Under President Biden in this system, many of these federal law enforcement agencies were hamstrung. And already, since President Trump wrote an EO in March 27th of this year declaring that the D.C. was going to be made safe and beautiful, the U.S. Park Police have removed 70 homeless camps that were allowed to exist under the Biden administration and has taken down over 80 instances of graffiti across our beautiful monuments.
All right, Mr. Secretary, great to have you on the program. So get ready for it because those D.C. protesters are singing again. Listen here.
Deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., allowed to do their job properly.
You will see them flowing into the streets of Washington in the coming week. At your direction as well, sir, there are other units we are prepared to bring in. Other National Guard units, other specialized units. They will be strong, they will be tough, and they will stand with their law enforcement partners.
Free D.C., we shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. Free D.C., free D.C.
All right, well, eventually they got to the protesters there. Free D.C., free D.C. How do you respond to those that are taking to the streets to protest this move?
Well, President Trump at the press room at the White House today, potentially an all-time White House American record for most number of press that showed up. The press from around the world, the press that covers this thing, they live in D.C. President Trump opened the conference by saying, look, I'm sure all of you know somebody personally who's been mugged or someone who's been murdered, someone who's had crime committed against them. And the room was silent and nodding. I mean, this is not a partisan issue, and I don't know how the other party decides that they're going to make this a partisan issue, but certainly President Trump's on the right track. Police need strong leadership. Police need to know they have their back. We've defunded police in our major cities. That's been a campaign promise of Democrats, which makes no sense, because if people have a right in this country to have an opportunity to go out to dinner with their family, to have their kids feel safe, and particularly here in the nation's capital, where we have tens of millions of visitors a year from around the world that come to see our monuments, our free museums. This is the place where we showcase America, and we can't showcase America in a place where the police are not allowed to enforce the law. President Trump has the back of police, not just here, but across the country. And I tell you, the rank and file police are thrilled to have leadership that is supporting them.
If I could just add a personal note, Mr. Secretary, I've lived in Washington, D.C. twice, once from 1999 to 2007, and then 2016 until now. And it's probably where I'll stay for a number of years. Back my first stint here, I never thought about looking over my shoulder when I was walking around the city. Obviously, there were places that you would strategically avoid at certain times. But now, I mean, just walking to the post office across the street, you're looking over your shoulder. And here's what Janine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, said about crime in the city. Listen here.
I see too much violent crime being committed by young punks who think that they can get together in gangs and crews and beat the hell out of you or anyone else. They don't care where they are. They can be in DuPont Circle, but they know that we can't touch them. Why? Because the laws are weak.
So, I mean, you've got the perpetrators mostly being young people, as we saw with the drive-by shooting of Eric Tarpinian-Yakum. It was young people who were going after a rival. That happens across the city. You could be walking anywhere in the city these days and potentially be mugged or even shot, as happened in Mount Vernon Square, which wasn't far from where Tarpinian-Yakum was killed, when that fellow was sitting in his car waiting for his wife to come out of work, and some crazed gunman just shot him dead. The thing with Washington, D.C. these days is you don't feel safe anywhere. How is this going to change that?
Well, I think we've seen President Trump, people said, how is the border ever going to be secure? And President Trump, unlike President Biden, President Biden said, oh, we need to have laws passed. We need more resources. President Trump got the job done. He got it done by leadership. President Trump himself is a walking deterrent, because people know what he says, that he means what he says, and he's going to follow up with what he commits to. And I know this both as prior as a governor, but now in Interior, in 41% of the southwestern border between the Gulf and the Pacific Ocean is Interior land. President Trump got that border shut down across the 5 law enforcement agencies that are covered in Interior. I got to tell you, all of those law enforcement agencies that work on the border, whether it's National Park, Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Bureau of Indian Affairs, they are also happy to have a commander-in-chief. And now right here in Washington, D.C., we got a commander-in-chief that says enough is enough. When we're going to be, we should be the richest and we're the most powerful capital in the world. When people come to visit here, this should be the safest place in the world to match the vision for what we have for America. And President Trump's going to get that done.
Yeah, I mean, looking at 2024, over 2,100 violent crimes in D.C. In 2025, It's 1,586 so far, and it's hard to believe that there are some who are just, they're okay with that. We see you doing something about it, and we appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mr. Secretary.
Well, thank you both, because that statistics saying they're down in D.C., but we're still on the top, the global leader in the most homicides of any capital in the world. That's something that every American should care about. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about this. If you look at most cities and states that's ran by a Democratic official, whether it's governor, mayor, whatever, usually be the poorest, usually be the schools are lacking, crime-ridden states or cities, and just wasteful spending. You could see that. Go look at your local counties that's run by Democratic government officials. And then when you see the Republican states or Republican led states, and I'm not saying that one is better than the other. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just statistically showing one over the other. And then when you see the Republican led, you're going to see more police arrests, more tougher crackdown on crime and drugs and longer sentences and stuff like that. So, you know, it's just your pick of your poison, which one you want. But at the end of the day, who knows how this thing gonna play out? I think it's a tug of war. I think it's a power struggle. But at the end of the day, I think Trump is trying to clean up some stuff. But will he get it done? I don't know. He got a hell of a fight on his hand. With that said, I'm maybe Yashrael. Shalom, everybody.